Hey guys, Mike Keller here with Verified Fabrication. The reason you're here is you want to know about wheel and tire fitment and how to properly measure.
You're goddamn right.
I want to tell you how professional custom car shops verify both wheel and tire fitment in a method that saves you time, money, and stress. I also want to talk to you about why you need a reliable, consistent system. A system is it's a word that's pretty powerful. It's something that is repeatable. Every time you use it, it works the same. And in a custom shop, when you have a bunch of things going, a bunch of balls in the air, a bunch of guys working on a lot of different projects, it's important to have that system. I also wanted to tell you a little bit later about a secret weapon that elite custom car builders know.
Just a moment, I'll run it through the computer.
And it's not really what you'd think it is, so you'll have to pay attention till later in the video. And I want to talk to you about a two-part system that we have that's going to make it super simple. Only 1% of shop owners right now know about this, but you can achieve perfect wheel fitment, stance, and positioning, and almost anyone can use it. No need to take notes right now. If you guys watch till the end of the video, there's going to be a little drop-down thing. You can hit it. I'm going to send you a PDF. But we're going to be pretty chill here. I'm just going to talk to you and tell you what I've learned over 20 years. Follow along. If you have some questions, just hit us up. We're more than willing to answer any question you might have. We're going to start off with the most simple and elementary part, the actual rim. And I want to talk to you about this first. You can go to YouTube right now. You can click on YouTube. You're going to see dozens of videos that are going to give you this very information, but we're going to start here. And I'm going to tell you why it's good information, you need to know it, but it's incomplete information. Right now, we're looking at this rim, and you can see this green tape has an 8-inch measurement, and the yellow tape has a 9-inch. Let's think green is go or good, okay? Yellow, if you're measuring a rim, you want to measure where the tire bead seats. 8 inches. So this is not a 9-inch rim. If you're ordering this, you're ordering an 8-inch rim. Very important. There's a 1/2 inch on the outside of each side of this that make up for that, and that's also important. I'll explain that in a little bit. Now we're going to come around to the front, and you can see a no and a yes. And let me grab my tape measure that I sat in the wrong location. Hold on. And we're going to pull this across. And you can see that across the face of this rim measures 19.5. So you'd think, oh, it's a 19.5. No, you have to measure to the inside. So this is an 18 by 8. Another measurement that they'll show you online, they're going to flip it up like this, and they're going to start talking to you about back spacing. Back spacing is a way to get to offset. More modern cars use the term offset. Offset is a percentage of where the wheel surface mounts. You can find that information, Google it, there's a million charts. If you know backspacing, you can find offset. We're not going to waste any time there. One mistake that I've seen some guys use that's cost them a lot of money is they take this handy dandy straight edge and they stick it down here, and they take this and put it down onto where the drum or the rotor mounts on the wheel, and they come up here and go, oh goody, I've got a 5 5/8 back spacing because they're measuring to the wrong side of this. It's very critical that you measure to the bottom of this edge. And I know that sounds crazy, but I had a guy call me the other day and said that they did that very thing and their rims were 2 inches wrong. So back spacing on this particular one, somewhere around 4 3/8. That's how you do it. Pretty simple. That's the nutshell of a rim. And that's where most videos will move on, and they'll come in here and talk about bolt pattern. They'll talk about, caliper, all these things we're going to get to in a minute. But there's one little guy that they kind of forget to talk about, because most of the companies that are putting these out are selling these. They're rims. They're rim companies. I don't blame them. They're not selling you tires, they're selling you rims. Tire is a very big part of the equation. It goes on the rim, obviously, but there's a lot of features to a tire that are pretty hard to account for when you're just measuring for rims. So we're going to come back to the tire in just a second. We're going to go on in here, and I'm going to give you just the rundown of basic things that you need to look for when you're going to start measuring for rims. Take a little straight edge or something like that. And we've got our caliper out here, and we're going to come across the center of the spindle, and we're going to find out kind of what would clear out here on this caliper at the greatest point. Where's it going to hit? It seems like it's about right there, and it's not necessarily right in the center. It could be down here where these bolts are. So in the center, this only showing like 7.5, but down here on this bolt, it's almost at 8. So that can make a big difference. So we know that we need to have 7 3/4 where it's at. So we know that that's where the outside of this caliper is. So if you order a rim that's too small, it's going to hit there. Very next thing you're going to want to do, you're going to want to take this and put it across here, and you're going to want to see where the caliper lays. Every caliper is going to have a different location. Some of them inboard, some of them outboard, some are shallow, some are huge. And if you ever look at the inside of a rim, you will note that depending on the offset, this face, there's a space where it rolls back this way, so that caliper has a little place to ride back here if it sticks out, which in this case, it doesn't need it because it's in. You could have a really flush surface in here and it would clear this particular caliper. But that's an area you really need to pay attention to when you're going to order rims, what your caliper, where it sets, because it can hit. Ask me how I know. I've had it hit. Okay. I've had about everything happen. It's 20 years, folks. Next thing you'll see, if you go out and check a couple videos out, they're going to take this straight edge and they're going to lay it across this surface, or they might throw it up here and throw a couple bolts on here to hold it, and they'll clamp this straight edge down, and they're going to take a tape measure and they're going to go in here and they're going to start measuring. Okay, we've got 6.5 when this is setting straight to this wheel lip, and we can measure into this inner fender from there, and we got like, 10.5. So we're gonna do some handy dandy calculations, and we'll come up with a rim that we can put back spacing on that will fit in this hole. And that's partially true. I think a lot of times they have formulas that will work. The issues that you run into are, where's the tire? There's a big old rubber thing on the outside of this rim that's also going to have to clear. So if it's got bulge to it, or sidewall, all these variables that are very, very hard to calculate when you're just strictly looking at measuring to sell a rim. Now the next thing that you guys have probably encountered before, you've probably been riding around with a buddy in his car and he goes through a dip and the back tires go whoop, or he turns a corner and goes through a bump and and the tires rub because there's something that's not quite right. When the suspension actuates, obviously that tire is getting closer to a suspension point. So if you're building a custom car, or even a car in your garage, and you want to make sure that when you spend your hard-earned money on these rims that you're not going to have that situation, because it doesn't feel real good to tear the sidewall up on your tire you just spent your money on, you're probably going to have to figure out a way to move your suspension through its travel. Right now, we have this set up at exact ride height with our tire size, meaning I have it mocked up. I have a solid piece in here instead of a coilover that's at 13, I can't remember, 13 1/8 or whatever my coilover height is going to be. And I can take that out. I have another bolt hole that'll collapse it to the bump stop. So I can put my my measurements in here and try to measure those features when this is all the way up in the air, like you hit a really hard bump and you're turned to the left. And now what's going to happen on the inner fender, because that inner fender may be not sitting straight up and down, it's sitting in there at an angle, and when that tire is at ride height and it turns, but when it goes up and it's turned, it's going to whoop, It sucks. So this particular car, Nova, 66 Nova, you can go look in all the magazines, or, you know, they sell sheet metal for replacing those kind of weird inner fenders that are on these. And it's generally a flat sheet of metal that is angled from the top of the fender, comes down and meets. And if you look up under a lot of these cars, you'll see it shows, you'll see where the tires are rubbing on the inside of those, even on high-end custom cars that cost quite a bit of money to build. Not just Novas, you can find it on Mustangs, and I've seen it come through here on just about everything. But if you're really wanting to do it right, you have to take all those variables and all those calculations. So if you're gonna do this, you need to be able to make this thing travel. I'm sorry, you may have to take your spring out, but you know, how nice do you want it? When you're doing it on a professional level, people are paying you, they expect it to be right. This is a little thing that I came up with years ago to try to help me. Probably in 2010, I made a pretty good mistake, cost myself a ton of money by relying on a sheet that I got with a custom frame from a manufacturer that just said, hey, here's the easy button, just order these rims, this back spacing, this, you know, this tire, and it's gonna work under there. And I was so happy. I clicked the hit, you know, let's buy this thing, let's get these rims and tires, and when I bolted them on, guess what? They did not work. So that was a very expensive lesson. And from that time on, I've tried to figure out, you know, we were talking about a system. I've been trying to figure out a system that I could use that would ensure that that wasn't gonna happen again. So I came up with, you know, you can see people bolting angle iron on there, using this, but essentially, one of the very first things you need to know is your bolt pattern. So you can get one of these cheap little plastic things online, and you come over here, and obviously this is a Chevy, so you know, if you're into Chevys, you know that's a 4 3/4 bolt pattern. Another thing you need to know before you order a rim is what the clearance is on this barrel of your spindle back here at this point. This one happens to be 2.5. Another thing you need to know, how far this sticks out. So you always want to be measuring, when you're measuring these cars, you need to have the actual brake drums, rotor hats, whatever on there that you're going to use, because there's a thickness to this and it's very important. So on this particular one, I'll just turn this so you can see it a little bit. And I'm going to measure in from here, and it is a 2-incher, okay? So 2 inches, 1.5 inches back there, that's a measurement you'll need to know when you're ordering a rim. I told you we needed to know the bolt circle. You're looking at this thing going, what is that? This is actually pretty useful. So I told you the bolt pattern was 5 on 4 3/4. 3/4 is 0.750 if you remember math class. So 4.750 divided by 2 is 2.375, which is 2 3/8. And then our tire size that we were talking about a minute ago, this particular tire that we're going to use, it is a 225/45/18, pretty common, real common size. If you go online, you can go to the tire manufacturer and they'll tell you it's 25.9 inches tall and it's 8.9 inches wide. So once again, we're looking for a radius. So we divide 25.9 divided by 2 is 12.95. Diameter divided by 2 is radius. Okay, so then we come over here and I take the tire radius minus the bolt pattern radius, which is this little thing there. And I drill a hole in this, and then I know that this needs to be 10.575 approximately. And what that will do is it will give us the outside of this tire when I put this on. Okay, so if I put this on here and I get it pretty square off of there, oh, I put my lug nut on this. I have to take it off. Just give me just a second. When I put this on here and I go to use this now, I'll clamp this on here with my little lug nut, and get it squared up. And then this is gonna give me a pretty good idea of where the outside of my tire is. And it's gonna give me a rough calculation as far as backspace. And you can make this out of metal. I just chose to make it out of wood today because it was a little bit quicker. All right, so now I can start to turn this, and we can already see, I don't have any backspacing on this, but I've got this to where I can slide this. So we're gonna move this in a little bit more. And we're gonna see just exactly where, this is, you know, it's a little redneck, just to be honest, but it is effective. You can do this and you can achieve a pretty good result. You can't account for everything because there's another part of this, which once again, I'm figuring 18-inch rim, and I divided it, got radius, got rid of this off of there. So from the center of this bolt out here, that rim's gonna set about right here. And it's, you know, you could probably make another piece and start trying to build this to where you could roll this through and see if you were gonna have it hit on any of your suspension or your ball joints or any things of that nature. But it is effective. You can build it for nothing in your garage. You can use it. I've done it before. It's not real confidence inspiring when you're gonna order a, you know, $3, $4, $5, $10,000 set of wheels and tires, because once you order them, you own them. But it is better than just guessing, and better than just taking, you know, somebody that's selling you a rim's word for it. So that can work. I want to talk to you about places where you can get some interference. Obviously, first place is up here on the edge of this. We can hit the edge of this rim. Then if we continue back through the back, we could hit somewhere in the back on the inner wheelhouse, or, you know, somewhere maybe on a curved, like a Grand Prix or something of that era. They have a wheelhouse in there. You could hit on that. Various different cars. So when you're turned out, those are kind of the two places you need to watch for: the front fender lip and the back of that. The other place, when you go the other way, is obviously going to be the back of this, where it gets close there. And then when you actuate this through, we're going to get up here by, this particular car has a sway bar through the front. Most cars don't. This one has a custom chassis. But you can get into the inner fender again. You could get into the frame rail. You could get into a suspension component. One thing this really doesn't account for very well, you might get into a ball joint on the top or the bottom. You could hit the lower A-arm where it travels around. You know, you could hit a tie rod end, could be hitting it. I've seen all kinds of places where you can run into trouble, and it's a very complicated area. We're not talking about the back so much. The back's much simpler than the front. Front is really where you can get yourself into trouble. On the back, you know, we could handle that in, you know, 5 minutes. I can tell you what you need to look for based on your suspension design and how, you know, it's just not as big of a deal. But I think that pretty well covers what we wanted to look at as far as
Crack 'em up, put 'em back again. Crash, bang, smash 'em up, it's smash up time, my friend.
So you could take a tire, you can go to the tire shop, you can buy a tire that you like, the size you like, and you can bring it home and you can put it up in here and you can kind of try to see if you think you have room. You can go online to all the forums and you can go ask questions for people who have done, you know, a similar vehicle, as long as they have a similar setup that you have. You can peruse Facebook and see, you know, some guy will post a car and he'll say, but, you know, honestly, how do you get from having your car sitting there, wanting to buy custom wheels and tires, stressing out over where they're gonna fit, stressing out about The fact that you own them after you buy them, did you measure them right? You know, your buddies are going to find out you screwed up and had to buy wheel spacers, or you had to send them back. Or if you go through the classifieds on Marketplace, you'll see that you can type in wrong offset or wrong back spacing and find rims all day long. So you know it's kind of a problem that a lot of guys are having. So how do you just know for sure, like, how could you go to a place where when you had a system in place and it was just very effective, you went from A to B, you got where you wanted to go. You took a tire, you measured with a particular tool, and it was lights out, bingo, order it, confident, you're done. That's what I wanted to tell you guys about when we started this video. We're gonna go around the other side of the car. I'm gonna show you something that, I don't know if you could sense like my frustration with a lot of going through this very frustrating process, very irritating that most of the videos out there are covering it from one aspect, not the whole package. So that's why Verified was born. Verified Fabrication was just born because I was irritated. And I was just like, there's got to be some better way to do this. So we're gonna go around the other side of the car, and I'm gonna show you guys exactly how this is done. All right, well, I told you on the other side we were gonna talk about a system, and we are going to. Some of you guys have seen this. It's kind of a neat little tool. I think everybody's bought one. It works.
Why don't you take that piece of shit back to the junkyard?
But it didn't really fill me with the confidence that I needed to, you know, pull the trigger on a, you know, $5,000 set of wheels, because it just didn't address every issue that I wanted to be assured of. So I wanted to verify more things than what it would do. You can see this is one of our tools. I'm going to take this arm off and I'm going to show you a few things about it that it can do. We've got our trusty demo 18 by 8. So you can see on this is one of my prototypes. We sold out of the regular version, so I'm back to using prototype for the video, sorry. I've got it set on an 8-inch, and that's this bead area right in here. And then the actual outside of this is 9 inches. And then this is how you measure your back spacing. You pull a tape measure from here to this point, and it's just super simple. I think I've got it tightened right now, but this slides in and out. But I wanted to show you why this is fairly unique. So you can see this is exactly how the rim is. I thought that was something that was missing in the marketplace that was really important for a guy like me that wanted to build a custom car, where I may need this to go up inside of a really tight rear wheel well and not have you know, anything sticking out. And I really just am using this to build my car around. I'm leaving it on my car so I don't have to sit there and go, holy cow, I'm grinding around this rim that's $2,000 and I'm welding around it, and let's tape it up and then let's spend a day untaping it and polishing it later. And
ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that.
so I just, you know, for me personally, I just leave them on the car. But the rim itself, it exactly mimics the rim. One of the things that the tool won't really do is mimic this thickness of the rim, and it doesn't do a great job of measuring for brake calipers. Like I said, that's something that you have to consult the manufacturer, and you can do that with your tape measure like I showed you on the other side of the car. But what it can do is pretty remarkable. You can see this version is inside this tire, and it is exactly like a rim and a tire.
I don't believe it.
I believe it. I don't believe it. I believe it.
I don't believe that.
I believe it.
I don't believe that.
I believe it. I don't believe it.
So we're going to move over here to the car in a minute, and I'm going to explain on the front what it can do, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you the secret and why the 1% of guys that are using it right now are just in love with what it does do. So.
Let's do it.
All right, so I wanted to talk to you about the system that we have and what I developed. Right now, the car is setting at ride height, meaning that it is where it is going to be when it's done. And I have a coilover simulation inside of this that is setting the car at the compressed height of the coilover when it's, you know, fully loaded and the car's ready to drive. I have the simulator set up on the tire that's going in the car, and I have a back spacing that I have played with and made work. Right now we are an 18 by 8 with a 6-inch back spacing, and what that achieves is we don't have any interference at this point I told you to watch for, the front edge. We're not interfering on the inside of the inner fender at the back. If we turn this the other way, we're not going to hit this fender lip there on the front. That's another place you can hit. We're not going to hit the frame. We're not going to hit the sway bar. We're not hitting the A-arms. So if I got inside of there and took my coilover simulation, I've got enough room. You know, I can push this up in the air like we're going through a dip. And this is super simple to set up. It's really easy to put in. There's videos that I've done that show you how to do that. So we're not going to take your time up here today to show you that. I guess the thing of it is the secret that we talked about. It really doesn't have to do with the tool per se. It has to do with the mindset of your stance and your positioning and your wheels and tires. But you need the tool to achieve that, or you need your wheels and tires to achieve that. So how are you going to get your wheels and tires? Well, you're going to have a way to order them, and you're going to have to know they work. So you kind of do need the tool in a way if you're going to do it the way that you know, I have found works the best in my experience. So as you can see, when you have it on the front and the back of the car, it gives you a picture of where you're headed. You can envision the end of the build. You can perfectly position each tire in the wheel well where you want it to be, and you can perfectly position it so that it sets in the wheel well in the proper location, in and out. You can make sure you're not going to hit anywhere, but the most important thing is you can step back from the car and spot a potential problem way before you paint that car, way before you bodywork that car, way before you order your wheels. You know, the tires, go buy a tire. You're not mounting it, so it's returnable. If you keep your receipt, especially if you have a good tire shop by you and you tell them, hey, I'm trying to figure out what tire size I need to use, they'll work with you. You can get a couple different ones, see what's going to fit. And once you know, you don't even really need to order your rims because you can build this car right around this simulator. So I think that the main thing to keep in mind is when you are building a car, the cost of a tool isn't so important as the time it saves, the money it saves, and the stress that it can save you. So you guys are probably sitting there going, okay, how do we get this thing? And if you want to know more about this, there's going to be a button that's going to pop up below me, and you're going to want to click on it because that's going to take you to another page. There's going to be a video that's going to explain how you get it and the packages that we offer and the benefits that those packages can give you. There's also going to be a button that's going to pop down there that's going to be the notes that I told you that we'd give you for free. So with that being said, click on that button. go check it out. See how simple and easy having a system will make your life in the shop, and how much less stress you're gonna have when you go to order these custom wheels and tires.